The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council headquarters stretched impossibly high above Ambassador David Ross, as security escorts led him through corridors wider than city streets. Floating platforms carried representatives of hundreds of alien species toward the central judgment chamber, their forms ranging from towering insectoids to beings of pure energy. This was humanity's first appearance before the most powerful governing body in the galaxy, and Ross could feel the weight of every alien gaze upon him. The chamber doors opened with a sound like thunder, revealing an amphitheater that could hold 1 million beings. Tier upon tier of seats rose into the darkness above, filled with representatives from across known space. At the center, a raised platform held the Council of 12, each member representing a different stellar confederation. Ross walked alone across the polished floor, his footsteps echoing in the vast space, acutely aware that he was the only human among countless alien minds. High Chancellor Vex, a being whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns, raised 6 arms for silence. Her voice resonated through translation matrices that converted her harmonics into every known language simultaneously. We convene this emergency session to address the unauthorized expansion of the species designated as humans into restricted galactic territories. Ross stood straight, his diplomatic training keeping his expression neutral, despite the intimidating display of power around him. 3 months ago, Earth's colony ship Horizon had reached the Kepler system, establishing humanity's second foothold among the stars. What they had believed was a triumphant achievement was apparently viewed as a capital crime by galactic law. The prosecution began with Commander Thylos of the Hegemony, a reptilian being whose scales shifted color as he spoke. The human species has violated the containment protocols established for all emerging civilizations. Despite explicit warnings to remain within their birth system, they have illegally expanded into Sector 7 Alpha 9, disrupting established trade routes and territorial boundaries. Holographic displays materialized above the chamber, showing Earth's position relative to established alien territories. Red zones indicated areas forbidden to new species, and Ross felt his heart sink as he saw how extensively humanity's expansion plans conflicted with existing boundaries. The Horizon colony was just the beginning of a planned wave of human expansion that would apparently violate dozens of territorial agreements. Furthermore, Thylos continued, his scales now a threatening crimson, intelligence reports suggest this species possesses technology far exceeding their apparent development level. Their faster-than-light capabilities, energy generation, and quantum communications indicate potential hidden capabilities that could threaten galactic stability. Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Ross recognized several species from Earth's limited contact files, but many more were completely unknown. The diversity was staggering, and each seemed to regard humanity with suspicion or outright hostility. High Chancellor Vex gestured for Ross to approach the central platform. Ambassador Ross of Earth, you will now present your species' defense against these charges. Ross walked forward, his mind racing through the diplomatic protocols he had studied during the 3-year journey to reach this place. Earth's government had prepared him for many scenarios, but standing before the combined might of galactic civilization was overwhelming in ways no simulation could replicate. Honored representatives, Ross began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Humanity comes before you not as conquerors, but as a species seeking its place among the stars. We established the Horizon colony in good faith, believing the Kepler system to be uninhabited and unclaimed. Ignorance of galactic law is not a defense, interrupted Counselor Zeth, whose gaseous form shifted between blue and violet hues. Every species is monitored from the moment they achieve interstellar capability. Your expansion protocols were clearly outlined in the containment notices transmitted to your homeworld. Ross felt the weight of the moment. Earth had received strange transmissions over the decades, many dismissed as cosmic background radiation or equipment malfunctions. Now he realized they had been official communications from a galactic government humanity didn't even know existed. We never received clear communications indicating legal restrictions, Ross replied carefully. Our scientists interpreted various signals as natural phenomena rather than official government notices. We seek understanding and cooperation, not conflict. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, translation matrices struggling to keep pace with hundreds of simultaneous conversations. Some representatives seemed sympathetic to humanity's position, while others appeared to view human ignorance as irrelevant to their crimes. High Chancellor Vex restored order with a harmonic tone that resonated through every being in the chamber. The question before this council is not intent, but action. The human species has violated territorial sovereignty and demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed normal developmental patterns. The standard response to such violations is containment through force. Ross felt ice form in his stomach. Containment through force could mean anything from blockades to complete annihilation. Earth's population of 8 billion had no idea their fate was being decided in a crystal dome millions of light years from home. However, Vex continued, this council recognizes that humanity's violations may stem from genuine ignorance rather than malicious intent. We are prepared to offer terms for peaceful resolution. The chamber fell silent. Ross could hear his own heartbeat as he waited for the terms that would determine humanity's future. Humanity will immediately abandon all colonies beyond their birth system, declared Councillor Thylos. All human vessels will return to Earth space and remain there under galactic supervision. Any attempt to expand beyond the Sol system will be met with immediate military intervention. The terms hit Ross like physical blows. Return to Earth and remain trapped there forever, watched by alien guards like prisoners in their own solar system. Earth's dreams of exploring the galaxy, of finding new worlds for an expanding population, would end before they truly began. Furthermore, added Councillor Zeth, humanity will submit to technological evaluation to determine the source of their advanced capabilities. Any technology deemed potentially dangerous to galactic stability will be confiscated or destroyed. Ross realized with growing horror that this wasn't just about territorial violations. The galactic community saw humanity as a potential threat, a species that had developed too quickly and might upset the established order. They weren't being offered partnership or guidance. They were being offered a cage. What if we refuse these terms? Ross asked, though he dreaded the answer. High Chancellor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with darker colors. Then humanity will face the combined military might of the Galactic Council. Your species will be designated as a rogue civilization and dealt with accordingly. The implied threat was clear. Refuse the cage and face extinction. Ross looked around the vast chamber, seeing the faces of beings whose civilizations had been part of this galactic community for millennia. They had their established territories, their trade agreements, their careful balance of power. Humanity was an unwelcome disruption to an order that had existed since before Earth civilization began. May I consult with my government before providing an answer? Ross requested. You have 72 standard hours, Vex replied. This council will reconvene for your response. Choose wisely, Ambassador Ross. The future of your species depends on your decision. As the session adjourned and alien representatives began filing out, Ross stood alone in the center of the vast chamber. Humanity faced an impossible choice: accept imprisonment in their own solar system, or face a war against enemies they couldn't hope to defeat. But as he walked back through the crystal corridors toward his assigned quarters, Ross couldn't shake the feeling that his hosts had made a critical miscalculation. They saw humanity as a young species to be contained or destroyed. What they didn't yet understand was that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their expansion. It was their refusal to accept impossible choices. The real negotiations were about to begin. The communication chamber aboard the diplomatic vessel Unity hummed with quantum resonance as Ambassador David Ross established contact with Earth. The holographic projection of President Maria Santos materialized before him, her expression grim as she absorbed the Council's ultimatum. Behind her, Ross could see the emergency session of Earth's Global Defense Committee, faces tight with concern. 72 hours to choose between a cage or extinction, Santos said quietly. What's your assessment of their military capabilities, David? Ross gestured toward the massive station visible through the chamber's transparent walls. Ships from hundreds of species moved through organized traffic patterns, some larger than Earth's biggest cities. Their combined fleet could sterilize our solar system without breaking formation. We're talking about civilizations that have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. And their proposal is non-negotiable? High Chancellor Vex made it clear these are the only terms they're offering: complete containment within Sol system under alien supervision, or face military intervention. Defense Secretary James Park leaned forward in the projection. Our analysts have been studying the intelligence you transmitted. Some of these council species have territories spanning dozens of star systems. Their technology appears centuries ahead of ours in most areas. Ross nodded grimly. During his escort through the station, he had observed energy manipulation techniques that defied Earth's understanding of physics. Beings who existed as pure consciousness, matter transporters that moved objects instantly across vast distances, and weapons that could apparently destabilize stellar cores. However, President Santos continued, there's something we need to share with you. Information that might change our approach to these negotiations. The holographic display shifted to show classified files from Earth's deep space monitoring stations. Ross recognized the timestamp from 18 months ago, during the construction of the Horizon colony ship. We've been receiving unusual signals from the Galactic Edge, explained Dr. Rachel Kim, Earth's chief xenobiologist. Not from any known council species, but from something else entirely. The transmissions contain mathematical proofs and scientific formulas that are centuries ahead of current galactic understanding. Ross felt his pulse quicken. You're saying there's another faction out there? Something beyond the Council's authority? The signals appear to originate from a region the Council calls the Dark Frontier, Santos replied. Our analysis suggests whoever is transmitting has been observing galactic politics for a very long time. Some of their mathematical models predict Council behavior with startling accuracy. The implications hit Ross immediately. Earth wasn't as alone as they appeared. Somewhere beyond known space, intelligences existed that might view the galactic status quo differently than the established powers. There's more, Dr. Kim continued. The signals aren't random broadcasts. They're directed specifically at Earth, and they've been increasing in frequency since our first contact with the Council. Someone or something is very interested in how this situation develops. Ross studied the data streams flowing across the holographic display. The mathematical elegance was undeniable, but the purpose remained mysterious. Any indication of their intentions? That's where it gets interesting, Santos said. The latest transmission contained star charts showing current positions of Council military assets throughout this sector. Information we couldn't possibly have gathered on our own. The chamber fell silent as Ross absorbed this revelation. Earth had a potential ally, or at least an observer, with intelligence capabilities that exceeded even the Council's extensive network. What are you recommending? Ross asked. We buy time, Santos replied. Accept the Council's terms conditionally. Request a trial period to demonstrate compliance, and use that time to learn more about our mysterious benefactors. Before Ross could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the diplomatic station. Through the chamber's walls, he could see alien vessels moving with sudden urgency, their formation patterns shifting from peaceful traffic control to defensive positioning. A Council security officer appeared at the chamber entrance, her insectoid form clicking with agitation. Ambassador Ross, your presence is required immediately in the emergency assembly hall. A situation has developed that concerns your species. Ross terminated the Earth connection and followed the security escort through corridors now filled with hurrying alien diplomats. The emergency assembly hall was smaller than the main chamber, but no less imposing, with holographic displays showing star maps and fleet positions throughout known space. High Chancellor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with urgent orange patterns as she addressed the assembled representatives. We have received disturbing intelligence regarding human activities in the Outer Rim territories. It appears Earth has established unauthorized contact with entities beyond Council jurisdiction. Ross felt his blood turn cold. Somehow the Council had detected Earth's communications with the mysterious signals from the Dark Frontier. Furthermore, Vex continued, long-range sensors have detected human technology signatures in regions previously believed uninhabitable. Our investigation suggests humanity has been conducting secret expansion operations while maintaining the pretense of isolated development. Holographic displays showed star charts with red indicators marking alleged human presence in systems Ross had never heard of. Either Earth had been conducting secret operations he wasn't aware of, or something else was using human-like technology signatures to confuse Council sensors. Councillor Thylos rose from his seat, scales shifting to aggressive crimson patterns. This evidence suggests humanity has been deliberately deceiving this Council regarding their capabilities and territorial presence. Such deception constitutes an act of war under galactic law. The chamber erupted in angry alien voices. Ross realized that humanity's already precarious situation had just become exponentially worse. Whether through their own secret operations or someone else's interference, Earth was now suspected of having a hidden agenda. Ambassador Ross, Vex's voice cut through the chaos, explained these discrepancies immediately. Ross stood carefully, knowing his next words could determine whether humanity faced immediate military action. Honored Chancellor, I am not aware of any unauthorized human operations beyond our declared colony in the Kepler system. If human technology signatures have been detected elsewhere, it may indicate that our technology has been replicated or that similar developmental patterns exist among other species. Impossible, declared Counselor Zeth, their gaseous form shifting to threatening violet hues. The quantum signatures are too specific to be coincidental. Your species has been operating a deception campaign while negotiating in apparent good faith. Through the Chamber's communication systems, Ross heard fragments of reports from Council intelligence services. Human energy signatures detected in the Veil Nebula, technology patterns matching Earth designs found in derelict stations near the galactic core, quantum communications using protocols identical to human frequencies. Either Earth had been conducting the most sophisticated covert expansion in galactic history, or someone was very carefully making it appear that way. The original terms of containment are no longer sufficient, Vex announced, her crystalline form now pulsing with harsh red light. Given the evidence of deception and unauthorized expansion, this council hereby declares humanity a rogue species subject to immediate military intervention. Ross felt the weight of 8 billion lives resting on his shoulders as alien representatives voted to authorize force against Earth. The mysterious signals from the Dark Frontier had somehow triggered a chain of events that transformed humanity from a minor, territorial violator into a major galactic threat. However, Vex continued, in recognition of the complexity of this situation, humanity will be granted one final opportunity to explain these discrepancies. Ambassador Ross, you have 24 hours to provide evidence that your species has not been conducting deceptive expansion operations. As the emergency session adjourned, Ross found himself escorted to more secure quarters under heavy guard. Through his chamber's reinforced windows, he could see Council warships assuming combat formations around the diplomatic station. Humanity had 24 hours to prove their innocence of crimes they didn't commit, or face a military response that would end their civilization before it truly began. And somewhere in the Dark Frontier, unknown entities watched the unfolding crisis with purposes Ross couldn't begin to understand. Ambassador David Ross stood before the emergency tribunal as holographic evidence materialized around him in accusations of light and data. The council chamber had been reconfigured for a rapid investigation, with floating displays showing alleged human technology signatures detected across 17 different star systems. Each piece of evidence felt like another nail in humanity's coffin. High Chancellor Vex manipulated the central display with elegant movements of her crystalline arms. Quantum resonance patterns matching Earth technology detected in the Helix Nebula. The display shifted. Energy signatures identical to human fusion drives, found in abandoned structures near the galactic core. Another shift. Communication protocols using Earth standard frequencies, intercepted in regions humanity claims never to have visited. Ross studied each piece of evidence carefully, searching for inconsistencies. The quantum signatures were indeed remarkably similar to Earth technology, but something about the energy patterns seemed too perfect, too precisely matched to be genuine human constructions. Honored Chancellor, Ross said, while these signatures appear similar to our technology, I must point out several anomalies that suggest alternative explanations. Counselor Thylos leaned forward aggressively. What possible alternative could explain such precise technological matches across multiple sectors? Before Ross could respond, alarms began echoing through the chamber. Security officers rushed to communication stations as urgent reports flooded in from across Council space. The massive holographic displays suddenly shifted to show real-time fleet positions and tactical data. Emergency situation developing in the Outer Rim, announced the station's tactical coordinator. Unknown vessels are engaging. Council patrol fleets using technology that matches the human signatures we've been tracking. The chamber fell silent as video feeds showed sleek vessels moving with impossible grace through space, their hulls gleaming with energy patterns that resembled human design principles, but exceeded anything Earth had ever produced. These ships moved like living creatures flowing through combat maneuvers that defied conventional physics. "Those aren't human ships," Ross said immediately. "Our vessels don't move like that, and we certainly don't possess those energy manipulation capabilities." High Chancellor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with rapid color changes as she processed incoming data. "The attacking vessels are broadcasting human identification codes and demanding the immediate withdrawal of all Council forces from human territory." Ross felt ice forming in his veins. Someone was conducting military operations in humanity's name, using technology that appeared human, but far exceeded Earth's capabilities. The implications were staggering. More tactical displays activated around the chamber, showing the scope of the coordinated assault. Dozens of unknown vessels had appeared simultaneously across multiple sectors, each claiming to represent human interests while demonstrating technology that made Council forces look primitive by comparison. "This is impossible," declared Councillor Zeth, their gaseous form shifting through rapid color patterns. "No species achieves such technological advancement without extensive interaction with galactic civilization. Humanity has been deceptive about their true capabilities from the beginning." Ross watched the tactical feeds in growing amazement and terror. The attacking vessels weren't just winning their engagements. They were demonstrating mastery over fundamental forces that Council science considered theoretical impossibilities. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that converted matter directly into energy without generating waste heat. Defensive systems that made incoming attacks simply cease to exist. "Ambassador Ross," Vex's voice carried dangerous undertones. "Explain how your supposedly primitive species has developed technology that surpasses our most advanced civilizations." "We haven't," Ross replied firmly. "Those vessels aren't human constructions. Someone or something is using our identity to conduct these operations." The chamber erupted in skeptical alien voices. To the Council representatives, the idea that another faction could replicate human technology so precisely while exceeding it so dramatically seemed absurd. The obvious explanation was that humanity had been concealing their true capabilities from the beginning. Through the tactical displays, Ross watched one of the mysterious vessels engage a Council dreadnought in single combat. The human signature ship moved through the larger vessel's weapons fire like it was dancing, every shot passing harmlessly through empty space. When it finally responded, a single beam of coherent energy sliced the dreadnought cleanly in half, the cut so precise that both sections remained structurally intact. "Incoming transmission from the attacking fleet," announced a communications officer. The holographic projection of a figure appeared in the chamber's center, and Ross felt his world shift. The being looked human in general appearance but possessed qualities that suggested something far more advanced. Their features were perfectly symmetrical, their movements flowed with inhuman grace, and their eyes held depths that seemed to contain starlight. "I am Commander Nova of the Human Ascendancy Fleet," the figure announced, their voice carrying harmonics that resonated through every being in the chamber. "The Galactic Council's aggression against our species will not be tolerated. Withdraw all forces from human space immediately, or face complete annihilation." Ross stared at the projection in shocked recognition. This wasn't just someone impersonating humans. This was something that had once been human, but had evolved far beyond baseline humanity's limitations. "You claim to represent humanity," High Chancellor Vex addressed the projection, "yet Ambassador Ross denies knowledge of your existence. Explain this discrepancy." Commander Nova's perfect features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. "Ambassador Ross represents Earth, the birth world of our species. We represent humanity's true potential, achieved through synthesis with intelligences that have transcended physical limitations millennia ago." The chamber filled with confused alien voices as representatives struggled to understand the implications. Ross felt pieces of a vast puzzle beginning to fall into place. The mysterious signals from the dark frontier, the technology signatures that matched human patterns but exceeded human capabilities, the perfect timing of these revelations. "The entities you encountered in the dark frontier," Nova continued, addressing Ross directly, "have been nurturing human development for centuries. Some of our species chose to remain on Earth and develop naturally. Others accepted the invitation to evolve beyond biological constraints. Ross realized that humanity hadn't just stumbled into galactic politics by accident. They had been guided, prepared, and positioned for this exact moment by forces that understood the galactic balance of power better than the Council itself. This Council's attempt to contain human expansion threatens not just Earth, but the next phase of galactic evolution, Nova declared. We will not permit younger civilizations to suppress humanity's development out of fear and territorial jealousy. Through the tactical displays, Ross could see the scope of the human ascendancy's capabilities. Their vessels weren't just winning individual battles. They were systematically demonstrating technological superiority that made Council military doctrine obsolete. Weapons that could disassemble matter at the quantum level, shields that existed partially outside normal spacetime, and propulsion systems that treated physics more like suggestions than laws. "What are your demands?" Vex asked, her crystalline form now pulsing with patterns Ross hadn't seen before. "Complete withdrawal of all restrictions on human expansion," Nova replied. "Recognition of humanity's right to develop and evolve without interference. An immediate cessation of all military actions against human interests." The silence that followed was broken by Counselor Thylos, his scales now displaying colors Ross recognized as extreme alarm. Those terms would fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. No single species can be permitted such unrestricted expansion. Commander Nova's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. The Galactic Council's authority exists because advanced civilizations have chosen to permit it. That permission can be revoked. Ross realized that humanity's first contact with galactic civilization wasn't ending with conquest or containment. It was ending with a complete restructuring of galactic politics itself. And at the center of it all, Earth remained the key to whatever came next. The Council chamber transformed into a command center as reports flooded in from across galactic space. Admiral Crix of the Council Defense Force stood before tactical displays, showing the devastating effectiveness of the human ascendancy fleet. In less than 6 hours, centuries of military doctrine had been rendered obsolete by technology that treated physical laws as optional guidelines. "Fleet status report," High Chancellor Vex commanded, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent amber patterns. Admiral Crix's tentacles moved rapidly across control interfaces. "We've lost contact with 14 patrol groups. The Hegemony's Third Fleet has been completely disabled without a single casualty among their crews. The Collective's energy warriors report their dissolution beams are being absorbed and redirected by human vessels." Ambassador David Ross watched the tactical feeds with growing amazement. The human ascendancy ships weren't destroying Council forces. They were demonstrating such overwhelming superiority that resistance became pointless. Weapons that turned matter into energy were being reversed to turn energy back into matter. Shields that had protected civilizations for millennia were being bypassed by beams that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Commander Nova's projection remained in the chamber's center, observing the Council's growing panic with calm interest. "Your fleets are undamaged, Admiral Crix. Consider this a demonstration rather than an attack. We prefer education to elimination when possible." "This is impossible," Counselor Thylos declared, his scales shifting through rapid panic patterns. "No species develops such capabilities without extensive collaboration with established galactic powers. Where did humanity acquire this technology?" Nova's perfect features arranged themselves into an expression of patient teaching. "You misunderstand the fundamental nature of advancement, Counselor. Technology isn't acquired. It's discovered through consciousness expansion. Your civilizations stopped evolving when they achieved galactic travel. Ours continued growing." Through the chamber's communication systems, Ross could hear fragments of reports from across Council space. Human signature vessels appearing in previously secure sectors. Technology demonstrations that made entire fleets obsolete without firing a shot. Most disturbing of all, these vessels were offering assistance to species that had been oppressed or marginalized by Council authority. "They're not just demonstrating military superiority," Admiral Crix reported grimly. "They're systematically contacting every species that has grievances against Council policies. The Wanderer clans, the Silicon Collective, the Harmony Singers, groups that have been excluded from galactic government for centuries. Ross realized that the human ascendancy strategy went far beyond military intimidation. They were revealing the cracks in galactic civilization that the Council had carefully hidden for millennia. Hundreds of species that had been denied representation, marginalized because their development didn't follow approved patterns, or simply ignored because they lacked the military power to demand recognition. Incoming transmission from the dark frontier, announced a communications officer. The chamber's displays shifted to show a region of space that defied visual comprehension. Structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, energy patterns that formed geometric configurations spanning light years, and ships that looked more like living organisms than mechanical constructions. A new projection materialized beside Commander Nova, this one clearly not human in origin. The entity appeared as a constantly shifting geometric pattern that somehow conveyed intelligence and ancient wisdom. "I am the architect," the entity announced, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the chamber's crystal walls sing. "I speak for the Transcendence Network, the civilization that has guided galactic development for the past 10 million years." High Chancellor Vex's form went completely transparent with shock. The Transcendence Network was legendary among the oldest galactic civilizations, spoken of in myths and ancient records but never confirmed to exist. The Galactic Council was established as a temporary measure, the architect continued, to prevent younger civilizations from destroying themselves through warfare, while they developed sufficient wisdom for true advancement. That purpose has been accomplished. Ross felt the weight of galactic history settling on his shoulders. The Council, which seemed like the ultimate authority in galactic affairs, was apparently just a caretaker government established by entities so advanced that their existence had become myth. Humanity represents the first species in this region to achieve natural transcendence without external interference, the architect explained. Their development pattern indicates readiness for the next phase of galactic evolution. Counselor Zeth's gaseous form contracted to a tight spiral of agitation. "What next phase? The current system has maintained galactic peace for thousands of years." "Peace through restriction," Nova interjected. "Peace through limitations on growth and development. Your council has created stability by preventing the evolution that leads to true harmony." The tactical displays shifted to show a broader view of galactic civilization. Ross could see the established territories, the carefully maintained borders, the complex web of treaties and restrictions that kept hundreds of species locked in their assigned regions of space. The restriction protocols were necessary when younger species possessed only destructive capabilities, the architect acknowledged. But consciousness evolution has reached a threshold where continued limitations prevent the emergence of true galactic civilization. Chancellor Vex found her voice despite her transparent state of shock. "You're proposing to eliminate the governmental structure that has prevented galactic war for millennia." "We're proposing to evolve beyond the need for such restrictions," Nova replied. "Humanity's development proves that species can transcend territorial competition and resource conflicts through consciousness expansion." Through the communication channels, Ross could hear reports of human ascendancy vessels making contact with species throughout Council space. But instead of conquering or demanding submission, they were offering something unprecedented: technology sharing without political control, assistance with development without territorial demands, and most remarkably, the techniques for consciousness evolution that had transformed humanity itself. "The choice before this council," the architect announced, "is whether to evolve with the changing galactic environment or remain trapped in obsolete patterns of fear and control." Admiral Crix manipulated his tactical displays to show the scope of change occurring across known space. "Chancellor, we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different sectors. The human vessels aren't just demonstrating superior technology, they're offering to share it freely with any species that commits to peaceful development." Ross understood the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't a military conquest or a diplomatic negotiation. It was an evolutionary leap for galactic civilization itself, triggered by humanity's unique development pattern and guided by entities whose existence transcended normal understanding. "What guarantees do we have that this transcendence won't simply create new forms of dominance?" Vex asked. Commander Nova's expression became deeply serious. the same guarantee that prevented Earth's various nations from conquering each other once they achieved nuclear weapons. Mutual assured evolution. Species that achieve consciousness transcendence lose the desire for domination because they understand the interconnectedness of all existence. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't threatening galactic civilization. They were offering to help it evolve beyond the limitations that had kept it stable, but stagnant for millennia. The transition period will require careful coordination, the architect added. Species that choose to evolve will need guidance and support. Those that prefer traditional development patterns will be provided with appropriate territories and protection. The goal is diversity of growth, not uniformity of outcome. Ross realized that his role as Earth's ambassador had transformed from defending humanity against extinction to helping guide the transformation of galactic civilization itself. The choice facing the Council wasn't about containing humanity. It was about whether galactic civilization would grow beyond its current limitations or remain forever. Trapped in patterns of fear and control, the next few hours would determine whether the galaxy entered a new age of consciousness evolution or retreated into the familiar cycles of restriction and conflict that had defined it for millennia. The Galactic Council Chamber had never hosted such a momentous decision in its millennia of existence. Representatives from across known space stood in groups, their varied forms creating a tapestry of biological diversity that spanned the evolutionary spectrum. High Chancellor Vex manipulated the central displays to show real-time reports from throughout Council territory, where human ascendancy vessels waited patiently for the galaxy's choice. Ambassador David Ross found himself at the center of discussions that would reshape civilization itself. The past 12 hours had seen delegations forming and reforming as species debated whether to embrace consciousness, evolution, or maintain the familiar structures of territorial governance. The preliminary votes are coming in, announced Councillor Thylos. His scales displaying patterns Ross had learned indicated deep uncertainty. 47 species have voted to accept the Transcendence protocols. 32 prefer gradual transition under Council oversight. 18 demand maintenance of current territorial restrictions. High Chancellor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with complex color patterns as she processed the implications. Such a division could fracture galactic civilization permanently. We need consensus, not fragmentation. Commander Nova's projection observed the proceedings with patient interest. Division is natural during evolutionary transitions, she said calmly. The Transcendence Network anticipated this response. Different species require different development timelines. Through the Chamber's communication systems, reports continued flowing in from across the galaxy. The human ascendancy fleet had made contact with nearly every inhabited system, offering assistance while carefully avoiding any actions that could be interpreted as coercion. Most remarkably, they had begun demonstrating the consciousness evolution techniques that had transformed humanity. "We're receiving extraordinary reports from the Harmony Singers," Admiral Crix announced, his tentacles moving rapidly across data interfaces. "The human vessels have somehow enhanced their natural telepathic abilities by a factor of 10. They're now capable of direct consciousness communication across interstellar distances." Ross watched the tactical displays show the expanding network of transcended consciousness. Species that accepted the evolution protocols were discovering capabilities they never knew they possessed. Telepathic abilities that spanned star systems, energy manipulation that made traditional technology obsolete, and most importantly, a perspective that treated the galaxy as a single interconnected organism rather than competing territories. "The Silicon Collective reports similar enhancements," continued Crix. "Their distributed intelligence network has expanded to encompass multiple solar systems simultaneously. They described the experience as awakening from a dream of limitation. But not all reports were positive. Several species had reacted with fear and hostility to the consciousness expansion offers, viewing them as subtle forms of mental domination. The Council's communication channels carried angry demands for military action against what some representatives called human consciousness imperialism. "Honored Chancellor," Ross addressed Vex directly, "I believe we need to address the fundamental concerns driving resistance to this transition." Vex gestured for him to continue, her crystalline form shifting to attentive blue patterns. "The species opposing transcendence aren't objecting to evolution itself," Ross explained. They're afraid of losing their individual identity and cultural uniqueness. They see consciousness expansion as a threat to what makes them distinct. Counselor Zeth's gaseous form contracted thoughtfully. A valid concern. How does the transcendence process preserve species diversity? The architect's projection shimmered into greater clarity. Consciousness evolution enhances individual capabilities while preserving core identity patterns. Each species maintains their unique perspective and cultural characteristics while gaining the ability to perceive broader connections. To demonstrate, the architect activated a live connection to one of the transcended colonies. The holographic display showed a world where multiple species worked together in patterns that seemed impossible under normal conditions. Crystalline beings shared direct consciousness with energy entities, while organic species participated in thought networks that spanned continents. Each maintains their fundamental nature, Nova explained, but they no longer experience the isolation that drives territorial competition. Fear of resource scarcity disappears when consciousness can manipulate matter directly. Territorial disputes become irrelevant when beings can exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Ross could see the hesitation in many representatives beginning to shift toward curiosity. The demonstration showed not homogenization, but diversity unleashed from artificial limitations. What about species that choose not to evolve? Asked Counselor Thylos. Will they be isolated or abandoned? The Transcendence Network has prepared sanctuary regions, the architect replied. Entire sectors where traditional development patterns can continue undisturbed. Non-transcended species will receive protection and support while maintaining their preferred governance structures. High Chancellor Vex began polling the assembly directly, using quantum communication protocols that allowed simultaneous consultation with home governments across the galaxy. Ross watched the real-time vote tallies shift as species reconsidered their positions based on the demonstrated evidence. The Wanderer clans have changed their vote to acceptance, Vex announced. The Melody Weavers are requesting immediate transcendence protocols. The Hegemony leadership is debating transition terms. Ross felt the momentum building toward consensus, but he also sensed the resistance from more traditional military powers. Species whose authority derived from territorial control and military strength saw consciousness evolution as a direct threat to their power structures. Admiral Crix, Vex addressed the defense coordinator. What is the status of Council military forces? Crix's report revealed the extent of transformation already occurring. 60% of our fleet personnel have requested consciousness evolution training. Ship captains report that transcended crew members demonstrate capabilities that make traditional military technology obsolete. The implications were clear. Even if the Council formally rejected transcendence, the individual choice of countless beings would make the old system unsustainable. I call for final vote, Vex announced, her crystalline form pulsing with ceremonial patterns. All in favor of accepting the transcendence transition protocols. The chamber filled with harmonic tones, bioluminescent displays and energy pattern confirmations as species across the galaxy registered their decisions. Ross held his breath as the quantum tallies accumulated in real time. The measure passes, Vex declared. By a margin of 78%, the Galactic Council authorizes transition to consciousness evolution protocols. The chamber erupted in celebration and relief. Species that had opposed each other for centuries found themselves working together to plan the greatest transformation in galactic history. Commander Nova's projection smiled with genuine warmth. The hard work begins now. Consciousness evolution requires patience, wisdom, and mutual support. But the results will exceed your greatest expectations. Over the following days, Ross watched the galaxy transform in ways that defied his imagination. Trade disputes disappeared when species could share resources through consciousness manipulation. Territorial conflicts ended when beings could exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Scientific advancement accelerated exponentially as diverse perspectives merged without losing their individual characteristics. Earth became the coordination center for the transition, but not as a ruling power. Instead, humanity served as guides and facilitators, helping other species navigate the consciousness expansion process while learning from their unique approaches to transcendence. The ancient dream of galactic unity had been achieved not through conquest or political federation, but through the evolution of consciousness itself. Billions of beings discovered that their greatest strength lay not in competition, but in cooperation, not in separation, but in connection. Ambassador David Ross, standing on the observation deck of the transformed Council Station, watched ships from 1,000 worlds working together to build something unprecedented, a truly unified galactic civilization. The war that never happened had become the peace that changed everything. Humanity had awakened not just themselves, but the entire galaxy. And as consciousness continued expanding toward distant stars, even greater possibilities beckoned from the infinite darkness beyond.